Well, as we move the calendar fully into the month of March, the calendar is moving closer to that first round of spring planting for many folks in parts of the Midwest. We want to take a look at where weather stands as we get into the month of March and the week ahead outlook and more. Joining us for conversation, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions is with us here to take a look at weather. Eric, thanks for joining us again here this week. And let's just kind of recap, the month of February, kind of an interesting weather month for many folks across the country. And I know some folks wrapping it up in a not so friendly way, a lot of wildfires devastating across parts of the southwestern plains, things like that. So give us a recap of where we've been in February, and then we can move forward to looking ahead to March here.
Yeah, so as we came out of February, we of course watched some pretty large wildfires in Texas, and we also had some in Nebraska. And that's not to ignore others around the country, but we know that some of the wildfires in Texas burned well in excess of 1 million acres. And I put this in a context late last week for a group, and I said, all of last year, for the whole of the United States, we only burned about 2.6 million acres. So to already see 1 million plus acres burning, and a lot of folks I know down there in Commodity Classic, of course, could see and understand that was coming through, and it was a pretty, nasty go of it. But you ask about February, and honestly, let's look at the whole of winter, right? When you look at the whole of winter, you're going to see most of the country, except for parts of North Carolina, a section of Iowa, the upper Midwest and Northern Plains, and the Southwest, one little corner of the Southwest. Every other place was wetter than average. But February, which was the end of it, is really the key. I was talking about this morning. When it comes to agriculture, it's what we need to ask the atmosphere. What did you do for me lately? Like, who was that song?
Mhm.
Who wrote that back in the 80s? Janet Jackson, right?
Yes, yes,
so,
yes, yes.
so it's like Paula Abdul, no, Janet. So what have you done for me lately? So the reason I say this is because the hydrologic cycle's fast. So
Mhm.
what happened? Well, February went over really dry for a lot of places in the Midwest, Mid-South, parts of the Southeast, parts of the Mid-Atlantic. We are way behind on snow across the north, but we just got a bunch of snow there recently, like the last couple of days, and the Canadian prairies got fresh snow on it. And the reality of it is that we need to see one major thing change that didn't get fully resolved this winter, and that is our subsurface soil moisture. So here it is in a nutshell. We made improvements over last fall's drought. Remember, we've had 2 falls in a row of pretty epic drought. We made some improvements, but there is still an underlying problem that I'm going to be concerned about until I'm not concerned about it anymore, which I don't know when that's going to be, and that is our subsurface soil moisture throughout the Midwest, primary corn and soybean belt. Now, the West just got 10 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada. They're not worried about water right
Mhm.
now, but we are, given the risk in this area. So long story short, that really, really mild winter may be able to help us in this regard, and this is why. So Midwest, upper Midwest, Great Lakes states, warmest winter on record. Today, the soil temperature at 50 degrees is as far north as Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, lower Michigan, which means any additional moisture coming in the near term gets to be kept. It's going to go into the soil and not have to go through a barrier of ice, which means it runs off. So that's my recap for where we've been and where we are, and now it's where we're going.
Well, where exactly are we going? And thinking about, immediately this week ahead, this next 7 to 10 days, are we going to be able to get some meaningful precipitation in some of those areas where that soil temperature is warmed up enough, Eric?
Yeah, maybe we'll start off with who isn't. And who isn't is going to be the Western Plains, the Northern Plains, the Canadian Prairie. Now, thankfully, they got some moisture recently, and there's a little bit coming through, but overall, what's coming in the next 10 days in those areas isn't much. So what about the Central Corn Belt, the Eastern Corn Belt, the Southeast, the East Coast? We expect a system on the 7th, 8th, and 9th of this week to just slowly traverse the southern tier of the US, get to the Ohio Valley, and roll up the East Coast. That's going to be the first one. It may even produce a nor'easter along the East Coast. There's a possibility of that. But the overall impact of that one system, because it's so much slower, is better chances of moisture sticking around. So I'm kind of excited to see this one, but after that, we kind of lose the stronger signal for more repeated systems just coming in every 4 to 5 days. It's going to slow down a little bit for us. We're also going to lose this really, really mild signal. Now, I didn't say cold, but I just said, being 30 degrees warmer than normal, I
Hmm.
mean, we're gonna peel that back a little bit, which is overall not a bad thing because some parts of the South, Southeast, Delta, Mid South, and even parts of the Midwest are, when you compare to average, looking like 25 to 30 days ahead of normal on spring heat accumulation. And we've got places that have already picked up an extra 150 GDDs compared to average since the beginning of February in the Mid South, getting into parts of the Midwest. So these things just have us worried. Are we going to get clobbered with cold air at the end of March? I'll be honest, I cannot take away that risk until I see the Pacific jet behavior go back to where it was. I want it to go back so that we just keep the warmer conditions around and we can go forward. But right now, it looks like the end of March might be a little cooler than average.
Well, Eric, let's talk South America here real quick as well. And watching Brazil and Argentina and their growing season continue, sounds like we've been seeing a few systems work through here. Talk about the latest you're seeing down there.
Yeah, so South America, let's talk about who's wet and who's dry. Argentina over the weekend, northern Argentina, huge storms. Buenos Aires been drier for a while. Coming to southern Brazil, okay on rains. Northeastern Brazil, okay on rains. Center west has been drier. Mato Grosso do Sul. This is where we just planted our safrinha crop, right? Now, the near term forecast continues to keep the center west drier, keeps those areas I just mentioned to you wetter. Does that break down? The newest model runs last week. Well, let me rephrase that. Last week's model runs suggested that most of March is dry for the center west. That would have been a bad signal for safrinha corn. Today's model runs tried to bring in a little bit more moisture. Still drier than average, but tried to bring in a little bit more. If anything reverts back to where we were, so this is important for North America and South America, the center west area has a dry setup going to the end of the monsoon, which typically ends in late April. And that means we could see a major impact on the safrinha crop. That is going to be top of mind for me going into our planting season here.
I know too, Eric. Thinking about keeping an eye on South America, it feels like overall net, even with some of those drier patches and whatnot, they've had a pretty good season so far down there, haven't they?
Well, January covered a lot of the sins of October, November, and December. And
Yeah.
that's what helped that soybean crop kind of stop the losses and start to rebuild. And honestly, a little bit of drier weather during the safrinha planting, it's not overly concerning. They still get a little bit of rain, but given the way at which their soils drain, they need more than what they've got. It's just now the
Sure.
risk going forward. Same thing for us, right? We get a crop in the ground. It's like, good, an open window. They're like, okay, bring the rain back. And if they don't get it, this safrinha corn's grown in a tight window. So they've got to have good moisture for the next, call it 60 days. And if they don't, they're going to run the risk of that crop being, below what they expect.
Well, Eric, one other thing I know you wanted to talk about some interesting new modeling released here over the weekend using AI technology. That was a hot topic at Commodity Classic for me last week. What exactly are you watching here, and what are we maybe looking at adding into some weather forecasting here, Eric?
Yeah, well, last October, October the 13th, the Europeans released, this is the ECMWF folks, they released a statement saying they're doing AI forecasting, and they showed us the maps. You could actually go get them on their website. Now, I didn't like their maps. Their maps, hard to compare to mine, and I didn't like the colors, everything. I didn't like them all. But the fact that they were doing it was important. Last Thursday, they wrote a letter saying they're going to release it, and they did. Late last Thursday night, I got a hold of it Friday, and I started to work it. So it's going to show up on agweather.com very soon, ag-wx.com, with these new maps, which means we'll be able to compare the dynamical models to the AI models, and it's just more information. And it's pretty exciting. I mean, in my nerd world, we love this. This is good stuff. And if you ask me, this is one of the areas in which artificial intelligence and the accessibility of machine learning is going to be a very big net positive for us. Other areas, there's going to be issues, okay? But in terms of predictive science, it's a pretty good thing that this is all publicly available now.
Well, Eric, good stuff as always. Final thoughts from you before we wrap it up. Anything else you're watching or we forgot to mention here this week?
Yeah, if you head over to ag-wx.com, watch my video today. I got long on it. It's 30 minutes. Okay, I know that's a long time, but there's a lot to talk about, man. Go to
Yeah.
the end of it. I want you to go to the end of it because I do an analysis of ocean temperatures. We talk about the big drought years like 88 and 12 and 91 and 2002. I'm talking about Midwest drought. And I want to show you the common signatures that we know about now that led into those years. I think it'd be worth your while to see that, because what I'm watching is not necessarily El Nino and La Nina, but more the North Pacific Ocean temperatures. They tend to be the thing that gives us the signal that if they get colder, our risk goes up in the Midwest. So go take a look at it. Again, ag-wx.com.
Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Always good to chat with you. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, sounds good.